Hey Wargamers, it's the start of 9th edition. We have new points, new rules, and so everyone is wondering, what are the best units that I can take? What should be in my army? Well, that's a really complicated question. We're going to try to start to answer it today. Now, the way that we're going to start to answer that question is by looking at offensive points efficiency, or the amount of damage a unit can do for the cost that you pay for it. Now, that really isn't a comprehensive metric. That type of math hammer really isn't the end-all be-all in 9th edition or any version of 40K. Of course, there's so much more to a unit than just its ability to shoot good. It can, have good or bad durability. It can have good or bad maneuverability. It can do special things on the battlefield, right? So we have to consider all these other aspects, other axes of characteristics that really make the complete unit. So this is one way we can start to look at, how much damage an army can do, but really 9th edition especially isn't really about doing damage. It's about doing the things you need to do at the right time in the right place, more so than just shooting stuff. So that's a really important caveat that we should consider before we jump into this rabbit hole of math hammer. So I just want to say that. All right, so I wasn't sure how best to do this video. I figured basically I'm just going to show you the numbers. We will use these numbers again, or at least use this approach again in future videos. So we will revisit these and go more in depth. But for now, to kind of get the big picture stuff out of the way, I'm just going to show you all the numbers, and we'll go through it piece by piece here over the course of this video. But these values that you see here are the damage per point that each of these units do against a variety of different targets. You can see that up on top. That's the target profile, and then the unit and the condition, like being within half range for fusion blasters or nova charging if you're Riptide. That condition is there, as well as the cost of that unit. And this is constructed based on two things. One is the points that I have. I added these up manually, so I might have did something wrong, and if that's true, please let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that these numbers are right. And then the actual damage characteristic, the output, is based on a spreadsheet that I took years ago at this point from 3++. So I think Abuse Puppy made this awesome spreadsheet that I've used as a tool ever since then, just so you know where everything is coming from. And so I have a bunch of different units here. It's not everything in the codex. It's the things that I was curious about, and I figured you'd be curious about as well. So at top here, these are sorted alphabetically by unit type right now. We have broadsides with missile pods. We have Fusion Blaster Cold Star. We have Cyclic Ion Blaster Enforcers. We have a bunch of different types of veteran crisis suits, because let's be honest, if I'm going to run crisis suits, I want to run them as veterans, kind of give them the best case scenario here. They need it. Gun drones with drone controller, missile drones, strike teams, breacher teams at different ranges, ghost keels with different loadouts, including the relic fusion gun, different hammerheads. I have Kroot. I have different Riptides, including with the relic ion accelerator. I have Arvarna. I have stealth suits. I have Vespid. I have XV9s, I have the Tiger Shark, I have more XV9s. I don't know why they're in a different spot. And then the Ivara there as well, because we got to know how points efficient the Ivara is, right? Okay, so that's all the units that we have in this spreadsheet. If there are more things that you want to add to this, let me know in the comments. Pretty easy to add things. So we can always do another one of these and see if anything changes. Who knows, maybe you have like the most point efficient custom loadout for something that I just haven't put in here yet. So, all right. And then, of course, all these values are shaded based on their value. So the most points efficient things are green, the least are red, and the maximum points efficiency for any given target is highlighted in bold and boxed. So let's kind of let's journey through these targets together, and I'll break it down into different unit types here in a minute. But in general, there's something that stands out right away to me, and that is the points efficiency of veteran crisis suits. They are actually very points efficient. We see here for for the littlest targets, that veteran crisis suits with 3 airburst fragmentation projectors are really points efficient. They're more points efficient than gun drones. They're more points efficient than breacher teams. They are very, very points efficient against toughness 3 models with the 5-up save and 1 wound. We also see that gun drones are in like a close, second or third place there. And gun drones with a drone controller are actually the most point efficient thing that we selected here for toughness 4 with a 6-up save. Then we have breacher teams being most point efficient for toughness 4 with a 3-up save. And then we have toughness 4 with a 3-up save, 2 wounds, so Primaris. We jump down here, we see heavy burst cannon Riptide is the most point efficient thing. But everything that's kind of above that, toughness 5, toughness 6, toughness 7, the most point efficient thing that you can get is crisis suits with fusion blasters at half range, right? So that's the tricky part, right? Is you have to get within half range. But if you do it, you're getting really good bang for your buck, literally. So if you can do that, you actually have really, really good point efficiency. If you don't get within half range, it's still pretty close, right? So we're looking at 0.05 versus 0.06, 0.06 versus 0.08. You know, proportionally, that's actually a considerable difference. But in raw numbers, it's fairly close. And there's a lot of things that are kind of around that value too, right? So if we were going to be bringing Fusion Blaster Crisis Suits and we're not getting within half range, there are a bunch of things that are comparably effective, including Riptides, including Broadsides, including Crisis Suits with various different loadouts. You have a lot of different options for killing that type of thing. Once we get up to toughness 8, the most point efficient thing is the Relic Riptide. And then once we start adding invulnerable saves, we actually, this is something that's a little bit surprising to me. I always kind of went with the idea that if it had an invulnerable save, the Cyclic Ion Blaster is going to be the most point efficient thing. And right now, looks like for those little guys with invuln save, an AFP is still going to be the more point efficient thing. And then we go for the mid-tier guys, back to the Riptide. And then finally, once we get to the higher toughness stuff, with the invuln save, we get Cyclic Ion Crisis. And finally, back down to the Relic Riptide is the most point efficient thing for this toughness 8, 24 wound, 5++ model. So yeah, a lot of the same guys are, like the best choice in a variety of slots. We're talking about veteran crisis suits with fusion blasters or cyclic ion blasters. We're talking about Riptides. Those are generally the more points efficient things. And I think it's worth noting here. That commanders are not the most point efficient thing. They really don't give you that good of a punch anymore compared to a crisis suit. They benefit from the character keyword, but that's not as good as it used to be. So, whether or not you want to bring, really, if you want to, bend over backwards to bring a bunch of commanders, seems kind of, it's not as clear cut anymore. They're not as point efficient. They don't benefit from the commander keyword quite as much as they used to. They still do, of course, if they have sufficient units around them. If you have those Riptides around, or you have those big drone units around, they'll be the same as they were. But if you don't, they're a lot more vulnerable. So looking at the points efficiency of crisis suits here, it really stands out to me as really a reason to bring them, even though they lack a lot of those other characteristics that are valuable in 9th. So if we're looking at durability, right, like crisis suits just don't have it compared to Riptides right now. And this is where understanding that multidimensionality of value really comes into play, is looking at the offensive capability of crisis suits versus the durability of something like a heavy burst cannon Riptide. That heavy burst cannon Riptide is more durable. It's going to stay on the table longer. It's not a glass cannon, but it doesn't have the same punch as a crisis suit does, whereas crisis suits might not stay on the table as long, but they are going to kill something if it gets too close. All right, so let's break this down into different kind of groups of targets to make a little bit more sense of it. Kind of looking at the top 5 units for different types of targets. So here I have, toughness 3, toughness 4 things. So this is kind of infantry, light infantry units, and I have these now sorted by the toughest target in that range. So this is sorted by the toughness 4, 3 up, 2 wound model, so like a Primaris. That's how this is sorted. We see the most point efficient thing there is a heavy burst cannon Riptide, followed by 3 cyclic ion blaster veteran crisis suit, followed by breacher teams, followed by a 3 cyclic ion blaster enforcer, followed by gun drones with a drone controller. So those are kind of the units that are going to do the best against a Primaris model. But we also see that the most point efficient choices for these other targets in that range are kind of all clustered together there as well. So the one exception is the 3 AFP veteran crisis suit here is much further down. So you actually, even though it's very point efficient for these little, like termagants, it's not quite as point efficient for something like a Primaris. And so you see an economy there. But those 5 units that I mentioned before are all clustered on the top. They're all going to do fairly well against these smaller infantry models. When we start to look at more heavy infantry, so toughness 5, toughness 6, again, sorted by the toughness 6 value here. Again, Trip, Fusion Blaster, Veteran Crisis Suits are going to be the most point efficient thing if they're within half range, followed by the Relic Riptide, 3 Cyclic Ion Blaster Veteran Crisis Suit, 3 Fusion Blaster Veteran Crisis Suit, not at half range, so still really good value there. You have a 3 Cyclic Ion Blaster Enforcer, and then the Yavara sneaks in there. Look, the Yavara's here. He showed up. He's actually very points efficient, not very, but fairly points efficient at killing these toughness 5, toughness 6 models. Right, then we move, whoa, hey, what happened there? Let's get back over here. All right, so toughness 7, toughness 8, monsters, vehicles. We see that the Relic Riptide is our winner here. And then Trip Fusion Blasters on Veteran Crisis Suits, again, are the most points efficient thing, followed by 4 Fusion Blaster Cold Star, and then the Relic Ghost Keel actually is fairly points efficient. And you get a lot of, this is another point where you get a lot more out of a Ghost Keel here than just its offensive ability. In fact, I would really say that the offensive ability of a Ghost Keel is pretty far down on the list of reasons why you would want to bring a Ghost Keel. But it's not that big of a sacrifice if you're looking at these numbers. And then here, moving into things with invulnerable saves. Now, I group this kind of just as like little things and big things with invulnerable saves. It's probably not totally fair, right? So if we're looking at toughness 2, toughness 3 things, that 3 AFP veteran crisis suit is the most points efficient thing if it has invuln save, and that's way down on the list of things that can actually be effective against the toughness 4 or toughness 5. So I probably should split this up, but either way, those veteran crisis suits are really good at killing the little guys with invuln saves, but then the heavy burst cannon Riptide is, again, the most points efficient choice of this selection at killing toughness 4, toughness 5 things with invuln save. And then our big guys with invuln saves, we have a little bit tighter clustering here. The Relic Riptide, Fusion Blaster Crisis Suits, Cyclic Ion Blaster Crisis Suits, Cyclic Ion Enforcer, more Fusion Blaster Veteran, Fusion Blaster Cold Star. Those are all very good choices. And there's really, so like on a night, we have the Relic Riptide doing very well. And then it's a pretty steep drop down to the Fusion Blaster Crisis Suits. Go from 0.05 to 0.04. So that's, a 20% decrease. And then it's a much more gradual decline after that. So all these things that are not relic riptides all do fairly comparably between that. So there's not a huge trade-off between them. But yeah, I think looking at that relic riptide, looking at these crisis suits here makes a lot of sense. Now, what does this all mean? Well, one thing I think it does mean that, yeah, look at crisis suits as kind of a very, very much a glass cannon option. Look at the relic riptide. The heavy burst cannon riptide, the go-to in 8th edition, is okay. It shows up here for toughness 4, toughness 5 things with the invuln save, but really it's not this universally points efficient thing. You really are taking that more so for its kind of jack of all tradesness than its specialization and being points efficient. It's durable, it's mobile, it will do damage, but it's not going to do the most damage for the points. But that relic riptide has some really niche choices that are the top of its class, and it has all those other benefits. So maybe consider bringing that relic riptide now in addition to a standard heavy burst cannon riptide. That relic riptide, I think, really looks like an appealing choice looking at these numbers, considering the presumed increase in monsters and vehicles in 9th edition. So I'm probably gonna try to figure out a way to get that in there based on this. I'm not giving up on crisis suits yet. I'm not giving up on crisis suits yet because they do seem to be really points efficient against certain targets. I'm looking more at fusion blasters and cyclic ion blasters though, because the cyclic ion blaster, is good. It's a well-rounded weapon, but it's not the most points efficient for the things that I really want to use crisis suits for. And gun drones, right? Gun drones seem really good. We don't see strike teams on here. We don't see Kroot on here. They're on here, but they are very far down the list. Here's Kroot all the way down here. Really not doing very well in terms of points efficiency. Did they beat? Here's stealth suits. Stealth suits. I wish stealth suits were more points efficient, but they're not. They're Varna. I would also think would be more points efficient, especially with that large blast. So when you're targeting those largest units and you're really leveraging the blast characteristic, I thought the Varna would really pull ahead. Just doesn't. Sadly enough. Yeah. Hammerhead's not doing that well either. I didn't include things like using one-off stratagems or having character buffs. Like I don't have long strike in here for the Hammerheads, and that will change their points efficiency fairly significantly. But those are transient effects that I didn't want to rely on in these calculations. So yeah, I didn't really think out an ending for this video. I just wanted to show you guys the numbers because I think they're pretty cool. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are there things that stood out to you? Are there things that you would like me to add to this comparison? We can always come back and talk more about it. But either way, thanks for watching, and as always, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This channel is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there. Special thanks to Shifty, Michael Byrne, Jim Bob, Tao Oswell, Drew Prattley, Stephen Cohen, Jake Johnson, Alex Hanna, Ruger, Jacob Harkreiter, Mark Schwering, Zealous Brimstone, Jared Egler, and Chris Kessler.